Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Sherbet Stripes Tote, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description. There you will find both right and left-handed video tutorials, a link to the written pattern, and links to all the supplies you need, as well as any other video tutorials that I'll reference here today. For this pattern, you will need 1 cake of Red Heart Roll With It tweed, a US H 5mm hook. This one is by Brittany Needles, and you may want to get some purchased handles. These are by Coco Knits, and I have a link to these at the link in the description as well. I think these are really lovely and set off this pattern, but of course you can use any handles you like. And if you make the bag portion as written, there is a little bit of yarn left over at the end of the cake. I had this much left, so if you need to make tabs for handles that have little D-rings or something like that, you do have some extra yarn to make more custom handle attachments if you desire, if you don't want to use these particular handles. So let's go ahead and get started with this very pretty bag pattern. Okay, let's take a closer look at the finished bag. It's made from the bottom up with a few rows of half double crochet. Then we work around those rows and just go ahead and work on up in rounds. Now this uses a couple of unique stitches, which I am going to demo for you here today. And as written, the written pattern makes a bag that is about 11.5 inches wide and 11 inches tall, excluding the handles. All of these rounds, starting in round 5 through 48, are exactly the same. And I also want to point out that the stitch count and row count I've put in this written pattern are to make it with exactly 1 cake of Roll With It tweed with that little bit left over that I showed you. The stitch count and row count, however, isn't really important beyond keeping it to a 1 cake pattern and sort of getting it to this size. So if you want to make this in a different size, you don't have to worry about stitch multiples or row multiples. You can just use whichever numbers you like. You'll just have to adjust how much yarn you have on hand. So now let's go ahead and look at those specific stitches. Okay, so for row 1 of the Sherbet Stripes Tote, I'm going to make 32 foundation half double crochets. If you're not familiar with how to make foundation half double crochets, I do have a separate tutorial for it linked at the link in the description. If you don't like making foundation half double crochets, you can instead chain 33 and then skip the chain closest to the hook and work back 32 half double crochets in the remaining chains. The point is to have 32 half double crochets at the end of your first row. So I'm going to go ahead and make a couple foundation half double crochets here. I've chained 2. I'm going to yarn over and go back into that first chain I made, the one furthest from the hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and that loop right there that I just pulled through is going to act as the chain at the bottom of our first foundation half double crochet. So then I yarn over and pull through that loop as if I'm pulling up a loop to make a half double crochet. So then I can yarn over and pull through all 3. And that's the first one. To make all the subsequent ones, I will yarn over, and then I'm going to put my hook under those 2 loops at the bottom of the first stitch. Remember when I pulled up that first loop, I said that was going to act as the chain at the bottom? That's how we're treating this one, right there. So from there, I pull through 1 loop, and that will be the chain at the bottom of our next stitch, the one we're making right now. So I'll yarn over, pull through just that loop to start my stitch, then I can yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that's how you make foundation half double crochets. Like I said, if you'd like a closer look at that, there is a separate tutorial for it linked at the link in the description. Now, because as I said at the beginning, stitch count doesn't actually matter for this pattern, I'm going to just make a few more foundation half double crochets here so that we can demo the stitch pattern for the bag. But you can, and like I said, you can follow the written pattern for the numbers and the row counts if you want to use exactly 1 cake, or definitely play with the size to make it the size you like. So I will see you at the end of row 1. Okay, so after you've made your row 1, it's time for row 2. Rows 2 through 4 are all going to be the same. We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to center half double crochet in each stitch across. Now, you may have heard of the waistcoat stitch or center single crochet or center double crochet before, and that's a stitch typically worked in the round, but here we're going to work it in rows. Essentially, we're going to yarn over as for a half double crochet, And then what we want to do is find the two upright or most upright portions of the half double crochet stitch below. So what we're talking about now are the vertical bars at the back of the stitch, all the way down here at the bottom. So like I say, we're going to yarn over, go down here to that first stitch, go right between those bars, all the way to the back, yarn over, pull up your loop nice and high here so you get up over the stitch, then yarn over and pull through all three. We're going to do that in each stitch across. So there's the first one, find the second one, just go right there in the middle, and it helps here to have a little bit of a sharper hook and give it a little wiggle sometimes. There we go, and just pull it on up. So yarn over, go right into the center of that stitch there, pull up a loop, and finish your half double crochet. So however many stitches, if you played with your stitch count, that you made in row 1, you want to maintain that stitch count for rows 2 through 4. So just work your way on across, and I will see you after you've made rows 2 through 4. Okay, so after making 4 rows of center half double crochet, or rather 3 rows of center half double crochet after a row of foundation half double crochet, then you should have a longer but still nice little rectangle like this. We just want to maintain our stitch count. If you are having a lot of struggle with the center half double crochet, I do realize it's sort of a tricky stitch, and it really requires you to be able to read your stitches really, really well. So if you don't have success with it, or you're not enjoying making it, you can absolutely, for rows 2 through 4, just make standard half double crochet instead. I just recommend making it very tightly. Keep a good tension on your hook because you do want the bottom of your bag to be nice and solid. So now let's go ahead and move on to round 5. Here we're going to switch from working in rows to working in rounds. So we're going to chain 1, of course, turn, come back the other way, and we're going to make center half double crochets in each stitch across. So just as we were doing for the past 3 rows, come down here, find those 2 upright bars, pull up your loop, and half double crochet. Yarn over, find those 2 vertical bars, pull up your loop, yarn over, and pull through. So we're going to continue doing this on across as if it was just another row 5 until we get to the end of the row. So keep making them across, and when you get to the end here of this row, we'll work all the way, the rest of the way around together. Okay, so we've made our little row across here. We've begun round 5 by working across however many stitches you had across there, probably 32. And then we're just going to turn and work down the side here. Rather than turning to work back the other way for another row, we're going to work all the way around this rectangle. So after you've made those 32 across the top, then we're just going to half double crochet in each of the previous 4 rows that we've made here. So just work right into the side. Working into the edge of a row is, I always say, as much an art as it is a science. Just put 1 in the side of each row where you think it looks good. Especially with this yarn, with the variegation in it, it really does hide a lot of the details of the stitches at this point. So wherever you feel it looks good and it's nicely attached, I always try to go under at least 2 loops along the side, like so. Just makes it a little better attached there. The whole point, though, is just to get 4 more half double crochets there worked along the side. Then we're going to turn and work back along our foundation row. Whether you use foundation stitches or you chained, then you'd be working to the bottom of the chain. Whatever works for you to have made that first stitch, we're just going to work 1 stitch into the bottom of each of those stitches right now. And this is where I really do love foundation stitches. Because of the way they're constructed, it creates this really nice bottom row to work into for any sort of edging, whether it's a project like this or just an edging that you're putting on a finished blanket or sweater, whatever it may be. Okay, so after you've worked across the previous row with your center half double crochets, then we're just going to, rather than turning and flipping this way, we're going to turn and work along the side here. So we want to work 4 half double crochets right into the side of our piece here. So that would be 1 in each of the previous rows. Working into the edge of a project is, I always say, as much art as it is science. So you can kind of just eyeball it, especially with this variegated yarn. You know, you don't get a whole lot of stitch definition at this point. So just wherever you think it looks good and it seems to be well anchored, go ahead and spread out those 4 half double crochets right along the edge there. There we are. Now this brings us down to our foundation stitches. Whether you made foundation half double crochets or you chained and worked your way back across, you're going to be working to the bottom of those stitches now. Now normally I would say we'll just go under those 2 loops there at the bottom. Very handy. But we want to maintain the center half double crochet look if that's what you've been doing up to this point. So we're going to kind of study our stitches down here and eyeball where we think those center half double crochets would go. Again, a little bit of art, a little bit of science here. Sort of figure out that halfway point down the stitch, stick your hook in there, and make a stitch. We just want to sort of maintain that look. It doesn't have to be super exact. Wherever you think it looks good, just maintain your stitch count. Get 10 stitches worked across this bottom here. Okay, so when you come to the end of working across the foundation row, then the last thing to do is put 4 more stitches in those previous rows right along the side there. So there's 1. There we go. And 2. And 3. Oops. Get that in a little better spot there. 3 and 4. Now, one of the reasons I chose a Brittany needle specifically to make this pattern with is because it does have a little bit of a point to it right here, and it makes it a little bit easier when working down a hook size. Basically, this yarn, the Red Heart Roll with It Tweed, calls for a bigger hook than this. I've gone down a hook size to create a denser fabric, so having a little bit sharper tip there can be very helpful. So I've worked my way all the way around for round 5. I've made a total of, let's see, it would be 72 stitches if I had made it 32 stitches wide. Just make sure you've got the same number of stitches on top and on the bottom, and however many rows you made if you have changed your stitch count. So at the end of round 5, we are going to just slip stitch right to that very first center half double crochet we made, like so. And from there, we're ready to start working in the round. Rounds 6 through 48 are all going to be exactly the same, and they're going to feature a stitch that I have dubbed the side split half double crochet. And this is a pretty unique stitch. It reminds me a little bit of the Tunisian knit stitch, but we're only going to make 1 stitch at a time. And I think it's a lot of fun and has a really unique look. So if you've seen this stitch by another name before, please do let me know. My research didn't show me anything, but here goes. Here's how I make the side split half double crochet. We're going to chain 1, and then we are going to work 1 side split half double crochet in each stitch around. So we yarn over, and then we find those vertical bars again of that first stitch. These 2 bars right here. And this time we're just going to go behind the one to the side here. So if you're right-handed, this will be the left one. If you're left-handed, this will be the right one. So we're going to go under that bar right there. And if it was a Tunisian knit stitch, we would just stay in front of our work. But instead, after going under that bar, we're going to send our hook right onto the back of the fabric between the stitches. So the only point at which we're going through this stitch now is just under that bar. But then we go under the rest of it up here. So I would yarn over, pull up a loop, and then go ahead and yarn over and finish the half double crochet. That's it. Let's go ahead and do that again. Yarn over, find the vertical bars right here of the next stitch, go under the left one, just like that, and then go right onto the back of the fabric, like so. Pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through. Once more, we yarn over, go under just that bar right there, and then right onto the back of the fabric behind it. When you do this, you'll feel with your hook that it is between the stitches, so it's very easy to get your hook through there. So we just finish the half double crochet as normal. Yarn over, go under that bar, right there, go right onto the back, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through. And that is it. Like I said, it's a very simple stitch. Reminds me of the Tunisian knit stitch if you're familiar with it, except we're just making 1 at a time and going all the way through. It's similar to a center stitch or a waistcoat stitch, but I find it a lot easier to make, and I think the fabric that it makes is really beautiful. But that's all there is really for the crocheting for the rest of this pattern. You're going to keep making this stitch all the way around in every stitch of the round. Gets a little tricky here when you get to the sides, but you can steady it a little bit closer there. There we go. There's that one. And pull it on through. And you're just going to continue working all the way around. When you get to the end of each round, join with a slip stitch, chain one, and start again. Now I found that for a good sized bag with 1 cake of the Roll With It tweed, that 48 rows was the perfect height for me, but you can certainly, again, adjust those stitch counts, adjust those row counts, however you like to make your perfect bag. It's a little trickier here this first round when we're working to these stitches that we worked along the side, but once you get going with this stitch, as you can see a little bit easier here as I work my way around to where I wasn't working to the side of the rows, it really opens up so the subsequent rows are quite a bit easier to make. So that is about it. Let's go ahead and take another look at the finished bag, and I'll go ahead and show you those really cool handles by Coco Knits as well. Okay, so down here you can see those center half double crochets, and like I said, if you don't like making those, you can absolutely substitute those with regular half double crochets or even single crochets for a really nice tight bottom. You just want to make sure to work round 5 with half double crochets so that you can work those split half double crochets in rounds 6 through 48, or again, however many you like to make. But I'm really pleased with how these stitches turned out. I just found them so beautiful. That's all I wanted to make for the rest of the bag. I think it really shows off the yarn beautifully. For those I know who will ask, this is what the seam looks like. So it is a little bit visible. It's not an absolutely perfect invisible seam, but I don't find it to be too distressing or anything like that either. I just kept it on the back of my bag. And honestly, it's the kind of seam that I think 9 times out of 10, only a crocheter will notice. Now, these are the handles right here. You can see also right here, it really creates this beautifully dense fabric. That's another thing I love about this stitch, because you're working over so much of it every time. You get a really nice fabric that I don't think is going to require a lining, although your mileage may vary, certainly. Now, these are the handles I was talking about. I found these at a local yarn shop in Chicago called Noom, which was a very cool place. But these are also available online, so I have linked them at the link in the description. It just uses a couple pieces of leather here, one on the inside, one on the outside, and I can actually, let's see if I can do this right here on camera, get it untied without breaking a nail or anything. But the nice thing is, it's probably easier with a yarn needle, which I didn't bring on camera with me today, unfortunately. But you can untie these theoretically. There we go. You can untie these and take them off. So if you want to wash your bag, launder it, you could absolutely remove the handles first and not worry about ruining those in any way. I just think they're a really neat idea. I had a lot of fun using these. It's basically just, yeah, put that there. Use a yarn needle to help poke the strings through and tie a knot. That's all there is to it. So I really loved these, and I thought they were really pretty and really showed off the stitch pattern as well. But like I said, there is a little bit of yarn left over here. Let me grab that ball again. So if you want to make tabs for different handles, you can absolutely do that. Or of course, buy a second ball of yarn, make your own string handles, however you'd like to finish off this pretty bag. So that's how to make the Sherbet Stripes tote. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video and it helps you make your own tote and explore this really fun stitch. Again, if you know this stitch by another name, please let me know. I would love to know if there's a proper, already known name for it out there. I hope you'll give Red Heart Roll With It tweed a try too. It's a really pretty yarn, and you can pick it up, I believe, at your local Joann's and give this pattern a try. Again, the link in the description has links out to all the supplies you need, so check it out. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day, everybody.